Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel, where today I'm gonna be teaching you how you can create a reusable dynamic LED sign blueprint with a customizable flicker effect, allowing you to have one blueprint and one material for every single LED sign you might need in your game. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into it. Alright, so first of all, you're gonna need a texture for your sign. If you already have one, you can skip this step. But I'm just gonna make a very basic texture in paint.net. So we're gonna create new, and for the dimensions I'm gonna use 2000 by 500, 2000 being the width and 500 being the height. It's very important that you remember these dimensions or this ratio. So in my case it's 4:1, because that's gonna be the dimensions of your store sign in Unreal Engine as well. I'm just gonna create a very basic supermarket signs. You can spend as much time as you want on the Shopsign design, but for this tutorial I think this will be enough. So I'm just gonna save this as a JPEG. I would also recommend incorporating some type of border into your texture, because that makes it a lot easier to adjust the UVs. So once you're in Unreal Engine, make sure you have your texture imported and start by creating a new material. And we're gonna call this LED, because we're probably not only gonna use this material for shop signs, but also maybe advertisement, anything that is basically a glowing image. So open up the material and now just drag your texture in here and connect it to base color and emissive color. So you have a basic material, and this will be enough for now. We will later go back and improve this material further, but first of all we are going to create our shop sign mesh. So we're gonna go to modeling and we're gonna create a new box. Right now I have dimensions for 3:1, but since we are on 4:1, I'm gonna make this 400 by 100. The width is completely up to you. I think that 20 is pretty good. Place the box and hit accept. So now you're gonna go to model, polygroup edit, and select your face that you want your sign to be on. And theoretically you could just throw on the material here, but I like to inset it a little bit. So I like to do it roughly around maybe like this. It's pretty good, not too much. Again, this is completely up to you. This is not that relevant. Also, you can extrude it inwards if you want to. I like to do that. It adds a little bit more depth to the sign, and I'm just gonna do it like this. But yeah, this is again up to you. However, the important thing now, we need this to have the right textures. So actually I'm gonna go ahead and create a new basic material. I'm gonna call this frame. Inside the frame material, you're gonna hold S to create a scalar parameter, and you're gonna just call this color, because if you want this to be like an actual color, not just grayscale, you can hold down V and click and you'll get vector 4. So you have RGB and alpha. This can also be useful, but for now the grayscale is enough. So I'm gonna put this to 0.2 maybe. Oh, this is too much. Put this to 0, yes. So if you have this at 0, plug it to base color, you will basically have matte black. So we're gonna save this, and now we will start setting up the materials of this sign. So you go to attributes and you're gonna click on edit materials. So the first material, we're gonna put this to frame. Yes, like this. And now we're gonna add an element, and we're gonna look for LED. Like this. And we're gonna select LED as our active material. And now we're gonna click on these triangles to select them. Make sure we only have the triangles in the middle selected. If you select others, hold down Shift and click on the faces you want to deselect. But this looks pretty good. Now, with your LED material selected as active material, click on Assign Active Material and hit Accept. So as you can see, the material has been applied. However, the UVs are totally wrong, and we're gonna have to fix the UVs, which is actually a lot easier than many people think. You just go to UVs, click on Transform UVs, and then select your face where you have your sign. And now for the scale, since we're working normally everything is like projected like a square, every texture, but since we're working with a 4:1 ratio, we have to divide the height by 4, so it's not 1 but 0.25. Yes, so now we have the scale right. Sometimes you might also have to rotate it, but in this case we don't. So the only thing we need to do now is to translate the UVs and basically just do it like this. So we have our UVs nicely aligned. And as you can see, this is where our fancy little border comes into play, because it really helps you to align the texture to the frame. Now you're gonna browse to your box and content browser, and you're gonna rename it to Shopsign, and I'm gonna make it 4:1 so we know the dimensions. So if you only need a basic shop sign, you're basically done here. But I promise you in this video that I'm gonna make it very reusable and very dynamic and very realistic. And as you can see, this looks a little bit boring. So we are gonna go into our material, and first of all, we are gonna create a material instance. And we can also already select this, asset actions, and create blueprint using this. Call it BP_shopsign41, hit save, and yeah, you have a blueprint. Very nice. And the reason we created an instance here is because we're now gonna add a lot of parameters and stuff to the LED material that we will then be able to change dynamically inside the blueprint. Alright, so let's turn this lame ass material into something a little bit more interesting. So first things first, we want to be able to change the texture dynamically. So in order to do that, we're gonna make the texture a parameter. So we're gonna drag off this pin from text and look for texture object parameter. And you're gonna give it the name of sign texture. Alright, if you now save this material and open your material instance, you will see that we have a parameter here called sign texture, and we can choose any texture we want. Let's go back to our material. I'm just gonna set this to our supermarket sign, just so we can see a little bit what we're doing. And one of the first things I like to do with flat materials like this is to add a detail texture. For this detail texture, you can basically use any grayscale texture. Personally, I like to use roughness maps. So if we just add a texture object and as the texture, in my case, I have a concrete roughness map that works really well with this. So I'm gonna look for concrete, choose a roughness, and I'm gonna make this a world aligned texture. So it's not affected by the UV, otherwise it would be stretched, and we don't want that. And this texture size I will make a scalar parameter, and I'm gonna name this detail size. Default value, I would say 900, it's pretty good. And now if you plug this, for example, into roughness, you already have a little bit more detail. If you want some extra detail, you can also mix this detail texture with your base sign texture. However, make sure that, because this is a roughness map, you invert it using a 1- node, because otherwise the parts that get darkened by the roughness map will also be more reflective. So now, in order to blend the detail into our base color texture, we're gonna use a multiply node. You can also use a blend function, but for me, I always found the multiply node to work just fine. And now we plug it into base color. And if you actually want to see some detail, you have to plug this into emissive color as well, because otherwise the emissive color will just override it and make it a lot brighter. But as we can see here, we have our detail on our sign. So it's no longer just a white surface. You have actually like dirt, weathering, whatever you want. One more thing I'd like to do inside the material before we head over to the blueprint is to add a little flicker effect, because since this is an LED sign and it might be a little bit older, maybe you want some flickering. So you're gonna look for time, and you're gonna drag off a pin from here, hold A on your keyboard to create an add node, drag a pin of the B input and press S to create a scalar parameter, and we're gonna call this time offset. Default value, we leave it at 0. And next we're gonna create a multiply node by pressing M, and from the B pin we're also gonna drag off, create a scalar parameter and call it time scale. And as a default value, I would recommend not setting 0 but setting like something like 0.5. So these two parameters here are gonna be used to randomize our flickering, because otherwise the flickering would just be synchronized between all the different instances of our sign. To create the actual flickering effect, you're gonna drag off another pin, look for sign, drop this down, and I'm gonna use 0.4 for the period, and drag away another pin and type frag. Now next you will need a multiply pin, and from the A value you're gonna drag off a pin, hold S to create a scalar parameter and call it flicker strength. Yes, by default this will be 0. Now we drag off another pin, look for 1- to invert our value, then drag off another multiply node, and here you are gonna multiply your base color with the flickering to get your emissive color value. So now if we put, for example, 1 into the flicker strength, you will see that it's flickering. And if you put, for example, 2 into the time scale, you will see it flickers faster. If you put 0.2, it flickers a lot slower. Let's save this material and just make sure that all your parameters you want to be changeable show up here. You have the detail size, flicker strength, time offset, and time scale. And I think these should be all. Yes, these are all. So that was it for the material. So let's head over to our blueprint, where we have our shop sign. And we're not gonna do much in the viewport. We can leave this as it is. And we are gonna head over not to the event graph, but to the construction script. Because the construction script basically dictates how the blueprint is initialized. Inside the construction script, we're gonna look for create dynamic material instance static mesh, because we need the static mesh to be the target. Yes. And this will allow us to change the parameters in our material instance for every single instance of the blueprint. So once we have the dynamic material created, we're gonna look for set material, again static mesh, and for the material we're gonna use the return value and plug it in here. And one thing I forgot to mention, since we have multiple materials in our mesh, we need to change element 1. So we're gonna turn this to 1, and we're also gonna turn this to 1. Next, we're gonna look for texture parameter under material and set texture parameter value. The target needs to be our dynamic material instance. So let's connect this up here. And our parameter name is gonna be, actually I'm just gonna copy this. It's the best thing you can do to avoid typos, because it has to be exactly the same name. Paste it here, and from our value pin we're gonna drag off and promote this to a variable and name this sign texture. Now, very important, you have to enable instance editable, because otherwise you will not be able to edit this value in the unique instances of your blueprint. So put this to true. So next you're gonna look for scalar parameter, and you're gonna want to choose set scalar parameter value on materials, static mesh. And for your parameter value, you again drag this off and promote it to a variable and call this flicker string. And of course you need to put in the right parameter name. So we're gonna go again to LED, select this, Control C, and paste it with Control V. And then you can basically select this and copy it 2 times. And one of these times, actually these you can delete. And now these 2 next values, which are going to be our randomized flicker values, again we're going to go here, copy time offset, paste it here, and from the parameter value we're going to drag off a pin and look for range. It will give you, yes, random float and range, and you can do anything from 0 to 5, for example, for the time offset. And now for the time scale, let me just copy this real quick. So for the time scale, we're going to copy this, and but this time we're going to make values from 0.1 to 2, because otherwise it will just flicker too fast, and that's not nice. Plug it into parameter value, and of course the flicker strength also has to be instance editable. I forgot this. And this is everything. So if we compile now, and if we now drag our Shopsign blueprint into our scene, you will see that we can now dynamically change these 2 parameters. For example, we could pick another texture here. This is another one I have. This might not have the right ratio, but it still proves the point. And you can also adjust the flicker strength like this, however you like it. And if you duplicate this, you will see that they flicker independent of each other, which is exactly what we want. One last thing you can do, if you have multiple dimensions for your shop signs, is to look for set static mesh and make the mesh used by this blueprint also a variable. So drag off here, again promote to variable, and call this sign mesh. And again, don't forget to make this instance editable. And I would also recommend you to set a default value, because otherwise the blueprint will just be empty when you spawn it. So look for 1, hit compile and save. So if you now drag your shop sign into your scene, you will see the sign mesh appear here, and here you can change it for anything you want. Just make sure that, for example, I have already made a square sign, and of course you need a square texture to accompany that. So I'm just gonna use this one, and it will also work just fine. Also the flickering you can adjust, and it will all work. Just make sure that all the signs you use in that blueprint have the LED material as element 1. That's very important, because otherwise none of this will work. If you have a different material than there, then the blueprint will not be able to create a dynamic material from that. And also, if you're working with non-square ratios, you have to make sure that the UVs are fitting. But apart from that, you could create any sign in one blueprint. Alright, so that was it for this video. I hope you learned something, and if you did, feel free to let me know by liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you don't want to miss out on any future tutorials. And I hope I see you in the next one. And until then, bye bye.